Zij haten ons. Polly St. George, op het internet bekend als Amazing Polly, geeft onder de titel Ze haten ons een uitvoerige documentaire gemaakt over de zogenaamde technocraten en hun plannen voor de toekomst van de mensheid. Met technocratie wordt een sociaal of politiek systeem bedoeld, waarin beslissingen over alle sociale en politieke problemen uitsluitend op basis van technische criteria en wetmatigheden worden genomen. De mens moet een constante component van het internet worden en dus digitaal stuurbaar en oncontroleerbaar zijn, gelinkt aan het internet der dingen. Uiteindelijk moet de mens niet meer zichzelf toebehoren en vergeten wat hij ooit was en waarvoor hij is bestemd. Op basis van de video die Polly ons vriendelijk ter beschikking heeft gesteld, kunt u zich een eigen oordeel vormen of de uitspraken overdreven lijken of dat de waanzinnige veranderingen inderdaad niet stap voor stap werkelijkheid worden.
Okay, warning. This is the most black-pilled video I'm ever going to present. Like, negative. Totally dystopian view of the future and what is really happening and what is going on. In the background, while they distract everybody with impeachment dramas, Kobe Bryant and other celebrities dying or performing at the Grammys or whatever absolute BS they're presenting. This is what's happening in the background at places like Davos and in the big, big money investment arenas. And this is just a high-level view. There's there's tons of spokes on this wheel that I'm not going to get into. And I encourage you while you're listening to imagine things like vaccines and why they're so insistent that the entire world needs to be vaccinated. For just one example, while I'm talking, let your imagination go to the changes you see around you. Why are they making all televisions switch to digital signals? I mean, they did that more than 10 years ago. Why are they trying to replace normal incandescent bulbs with LED bulbs and actually Wi-Fi controlled lights? Why are they doing this? All of it plays into what I'm talking to you about today. So does the trans thing, because that's a way of getting us to divorce ourselves from biology. A lot of things play into what I'm going to talk to you about today, and basically the shape of it is this. We're looking at a future that combines communism with fascism. And you see all these lines? I don't know if they'll show up on your TV. This interconnectedness, if you notice, they're using this symbol everywhere. Dots connected by lines. They use it as a graphic to show how the brain works. They also use it as a graphic to show how 5G will work. 5G, the technology, the next generation internet. There's a reason that they use those two graphics for those two things, the brain and 5G. And that's because they're trying to make the entire globe and all the people in it be nodes on their new internet so that we may all function like one brain. This is not an exaggeration. The only question in my mind about where we're going is whether or not we actually have the technology to pull it off. I have no question in my mind that this is where the elite of the elite want us to go. Because just imagine this entire new paradigm where people aren't really people. They're just part of the Internet of Things. And if you can be one of the programmers of the Internet of Things, you will be like a god. And the race is on. Their new world, their fourth industrial revolution, that's what this is all about. The fourth industrial revolution combines this thing called modern monetary theory with the circular economy, the Internet of Things, blockchain, intellectual property, genetic engineering, and finally, augmented and virtual reality. And here's the key takeaways for each of these things. In modern monetary theory, it means that if governments need money, they just input more money, quote unquote, into the computer account. Money will become meaningless in modern monetary theory. Circular economy means that private ownership is completely abolished. You won't own anything, ever. It's all leased. The Internet of Things literally means that each piece and component of each thing out there in the world, including living things, will be tracked and controlled digitally. The blockchain is the method by which they will implement this, and that's why they need 5G technology or higher. It will also offer us a replacement for hard currency and have digital currency as the only option. Genetic engineering is reconstructing, rebuilding parts of our DNA, which will enable them to connect people to the Internet of Things. And then consider this. If you modify yourself or agree to genetic modification or implants, then who owns you? Does the owner of the intellectual property own you or part of you? Possibly. And finally, if this all sounds too nightmarish to even believe, you think people will not put up with this, that we will not even be able to mentally cope with this reality. It doesn't matter, they've got that covered, because we're all going to live in virtual reality or augmented reality. We will buy and sell virtual things. We will exist in a sphere that is no longer 3D. In fact, all of this stuff reduces us from 3D to a 2D reality. It's very, very much like the Matrix, the movie The Matrix, where human beings are immobile. They don't need to move. They're plugged in to the internet constantly. And it's so real to them in their minds that they don't even know their bodies are still. They believe they're moving. They believe they're living a life, but they're really not. They're really not even living a life at all. It's all constructed with a computer simulation. It sounds crazy, but let me present my case. The first thing we're going to look at is this, the Smart Prosperity Institute. This is from January 2018, and it goes to the circular economy. Here's their policy brief. They say, one example of this strategy is the leasing model. They say it's similar to the concept of leasing photocopiers or home water heaters, with the asset owned by a third party who manages all repairs, servicing, and replacement. You can look on YouTube, just Google circular economy, light bulbs, or light, and they explain how in the future we will rent our light from a light company, and we don't have to think about it ever again. We don't own the light bulbs in our house. Before they burn out, someone will come along without us even having to contact them, and they'll replace the bulbs. In fact, we don't even have to want them to do that. They own the bulbs, so they'll come whenever they want. They'll come whenever they want. So apply that to every appliance in your home, all the way down to your clothing and your food. This is real. This is happening. There's companies out there trying to be the dominant company on tracing every part of every item. So if you have clothing that's 60% cotton and 40% rayon, I'm not joking. There's companies out there that will track the rayon and the cotton in your garment. This is the Internet of Things. This is the circular economy. You don't own anything. Here's Kate Raworth, who is one of the leading proponents of the circular economy. And look what she has to say about why this moment in history is so presents so many great opportunities to implement the circular economy. She says, we've got unprecedented opportunities for making it happen because 20th century centralized technologies concentrated wealth, knowledge, and power in few hands. We've got it so centralized now, this is the perfect time for us to use all of our power and wealth and foist the circular economy onto people. And what she means by the circular economy is that we will find ways to turn the waste from one urban process into food for the next. So you take look, it even says biological materials, regenerate them. Regenerate biological materials. And if you haven't caught it, they are, Seattle, I think, has started the first human body compost facility. So you can get compost and it's made of dead humans. Doesn't sound like a great idea. Sounds very demonic as well. Sounds like it has no respect for life. Talk about your regenerating biological materials. Here's another guy talking about the circular economy, Olivier Scalabre. He's French. He talks about the productivity decline from the 1960s to 2010. There's been a productivity decline, although if you look at the US line, it's fairly normal ups and downs. But what he's talking about is he's using the fact that there's been a war on manufacturing. You know, everything's gone from the traditional manufacturing companies over to China and Bangladesh and all these third world countries where the oligarchs can exploit labor. So now they're using that against us to try and prove that productivity is on the decline in Western countries. And what they want is for you to think, oh no, what'll everyone do for work? We have to change the way we think about productivity. So they want us to stop thinking about making things, and they want us to start thinking about AI and virtual technology and all of these 2D space things. You see, I told you it's going from a 3D life to a 2D life. This man, Olivier, he says, this is his sales pitch. Imagine a world where you can buy the exact products you want, with the functionalities you need, with the design you want, with the same cost and lead time as a product that's been mass produced. Because in his fantasy world, we dream something up and we can order it online and these 3D printers will make it on demand, and this will be a lot less wasteful, he thinks. For all of us. I mean, can you just imagine you ever tried to custom order anything? Doesn't work out very well and you have to wait forever. And by the way, they still have to ship it. They still have to use all of the materials that you want. How is this saving anything? It's not saving the environment. It's just putting people out of work and removing their choices for them. In his video, he says, this all depends on advanced robots, augmented reality, big data analytics, the industrial Internet of Things, simulation, and cloud and cybersecurity, as well as this additive manufacturing, which I don't understand. But those are all 2D space jobs. None of those are 3D space jobs. So a lot of people are going to end up being out of work if this circular economy goes forward. Let's move on to modern monetary theory. What is it? It's a once fringe school of economic thought that's suddenly of the moment, according to this Bloomberg article. Modern monetary theory proposes that a country with its own currency, such as the US, doesn't have to worry about accumulating too much debt because it can always print more money to pay interest. They're free to print however much they need. Does it feel like we're in kindergarten? It does to me. When you were a kid, see, maybe I was a weirdo, but I used to see poor people. I used to think about poverty, and I said, why can't they just print more money? They're in charge of the printing press, right? And those people need money. Just print it and give it to them. That was when I was 5 or 6 years old. These are grown adults, and they are saying the same thing. So that's modern monetary theory. Modern monetary theorists, and there's a lot of them, and it's gaining in popularity. I argue that even central banks are pushing us in this direction. Modern monetary theory is that we just print as much money as we need whenever we need it. And if we want to get rid of it because it's causing inflation, we just raise taxes. They're being very tricky about it too. What they're saying is the current monetary system based on debt is a joke and we need to blow it up. And you know what? They're not wrong. They're not wrong about that. And so their solution seems like, oh, yeah, you're right. Don't fall for it. Okay, ding ding, we've done these two now. What are we going to look at next? Do you know what the Internet of Things is? Every piece of equipment and even just materials like roadways, doors, windows, heating systems, lights, and living beings, food, and they're already doing this in China, will be connected to the internet. So remember that, and then think about this technology. Optogenetics. What is optogenetics and how can we use it to discover more about the brain? Bear with me as I read this to you. Optogenetics is a method for controlling a neuron's activity using light and genetic engineering. Genetic engineering is a process where scientists change the information in the genetic code of a living thing. In optogenetic studies, scientists take the genetic code of the neurons they want to study, and they add a new piece of code into it. The new code allows these neurons to make special proteins called opsins, which respond to light. Opsins occur naturally and were first discovered in algae, which use these proteins to help them move toward the light. But how does the opsin get into the neuron? Well, this requires some specialized laboratory techniques. They talk about using a mouse as an example. And to get the opsin into the neuron of a mouse, the genetic code for the opsin is carefully inserted into the genetic code for the neuron in the mouse. If this is done correctly, now every neuron in the mouse should have the opsin. Because we understand a lot about the genetic code of the mouse, we can choose where to put the opsin. We can insert the code into a specific type of neuron or into a specific location in the brain. We can choose exactly which neurons we want to control. Okay, you got that? And I've researched this. You can get those opsins into the neurons in the brain on the back of a virus. And they can even use a common virus, such as the one that causes the common cold. It's that easy to do it. Now look at this article. This is from August 2019. Scientists can now manipulate brain cells using smartphone. A team of scientists in Korea and the United States have invented a device that can control neural circuits using a tiny brain implant controlled by a smartphone. And then it's wireless. Controlled with an elegant and simple user face on a smartphone, neuroscientists can easily trigger any specific combination or precise sequencing of light and drug deliveries in any implanted target animal without need to be physically inside the laboratory. This is nanoscale engineering. Will that combine with the Internet of Things and the blockchain to make us a part of this circular economy, I wonder? You might say, no way will people get implants. Well, have you heard of CRISPR? There's people doing this willingly. Let me show you a clip from a show that was produced a year ago.
He's got a scientific background with a PhD in biophysics, and he spent 2 years as a research fellow at NASA. But he left to start a company called the Odin. He sells kits to help anyone modify organisms for as cheap as $30. That's because he wants genetic engineering to be decentralized, in the hands and homes of everyone.
I think everybody's worried about the risks of genetic engineering and how it's going to hurt people. And nobody's worried about the risks of what's going to happen if we don't allow people to do genetic engineering.
It's a provocative idea. It's also dangerous. And it's becoming possible because of CRISPR, a gene editing technology that can find and cut a sequence of DNA in a cell and replace it with another. A few years ago, George Church, a pioneer of CRISPR, signed on as an advisor to the Odin. But even he's acknowledged the risks inherent in DIY genetic engineering. Leading researchers say the technology is still too new to use on humans without potentially harmful consequences.
People will order these kits online and they will inject themselves with things. Do they know for sure what they're injecting into themselves? More than that, who owns the technology? And now that technology is inside their bodies. So what does that mean? This is where we get into intellectual property. If you get your baby genetically modified somehow, or let's say you have diabetes and you want to get an implant so that you can control your blood sugar with your smartphone. This is something that is already available, by the way. I wonder, especially in the circular economy where you don't own anything anymore, I wonder what level of control the company that gave you that technology has over your body. I wonder. By the way, CRISPR, the technology that freak guy uses and sells kits for, it's co-sponsored. A partner in that is George Church. George Church is one of the scientists that got money with and hung out with Jeffrey Epstein. These two are at the same level, really, in terms of their respect for humans. Jeffrey Epstein sexually abused who knows how many women, young women, children technically, and trafficked them to his friends. And George Church has so little respect for humans that he sells kits to genetically engineer things which have unforeseeable implications for the human race. I mean, it doesn't have to be just a body mod. You can use CRISPR to genetically engineer viruses and other things. So George Church also has no respect for humanity and human life, in my opinion. It's no wonder that he hung around with Jeffrey Epstein and took his money repeatedly. And you know who facilitated all these relationships, by the way, is this guy, John Brockman from edge.org. Nobody is looking at John Brockman. So I still owe you guys a video about him, and I will do that as soon as I can. Here's Harvard University, a place that Jeffrey Epstein gave a lot of money to, by the way, looking at the patent landscape of genetically modified organisms. Right, it's something to be concerned about. And here's Foreign Affairs talking about who owns MERS, which is a virus, which is a coronavirus. And we come to find out, of course, that the coronaviruses are all owned and patented, and a lot of people already knew that, but to some people that's coming as quite a surprise. Well, let me surprise you further. All of these as soon as they genetically modify an organism, living or dead, they can patent it. And another surprise is, as soon as they genetically modify a food product or an ingredient inside a food product, it means it's not really within the FDA's purview, and they don't really need to get it tested for safety, for consumption. These maniacs are exploiting every loophole, and it's always about undermining safety and security of human beings. Okay, this brings us to an important ingredient in this recipe, this anti-human recipe, and that's the tracking mechanism, which is blockchain. Through the blockchain, which they sell as this wonderful, libertarian, decentralized idea, they can use the computing power of multiple computers to track every component of everything on Earth and they say, well, it'll be completely transparent. This way everybody can see everything that's going on because it'll be on this blockchain, which is totally secure. And because it's spread across multiple computers, no one person has control of it. This is their utopian sales pitch for this thing. But the thing about blockchain is that it requires an enormous amount of energy to work. And which country currently hosts the most crypto servers, for example? It's China. And China is never held to account regarding the climate crisis or green tech, is it? Think about Greta Thunberg or whatever her name is. How dare you! Does she ever ask China to participate in this sustainable economy? I mean, the circular economy is otherwise known as sustainable development. Does Greta ever berate China about it? She doesn't. Considering that they are really pushing Western countries to get off of fossil fuels, and hopefully that doesn't actually come to fruition, but here in Canada they are demonstrating exactly how they will cut off our access to our own natural resources through bureaucracy. What would produce the energy needed to power this energy hog blockchain thing? Remember that in the circular economy, a lot of jobs will be lost. Robots will do everything in consult with the Internet of Things. In MMT, modern monetary theory, they say they don't need a backing for the value of money. That's what they say. But I argue there is a backing for the value of money in that system. And the backing is human energy. Each person will be evaluated for how much energy they can contribute to the circular economy. And that is our whole worth. They will give us an income, which will be energy credits, basically, based on how much energy we put back into the system. You see, and in that way, in their nutso minds, everything will be in perfect balance. If I, Polly, do X amount of work in a day that benefits the system, I, Polly, will be rewarded with the same amount of credits back, which I can spend into the system by eating food, or heating my home, or traveling from point A to point B. It's impossible to get ahead in such a system. But that's what they want. Complete socialism. Everybody exactly the same. Everybody only rewarded. What's that phrase that socialists use or communists use? From each according to his ability, to each according to his need, or something like that. I mean, this is that system brought to life, but they couldn't do it in the 3D world. They're doing it in the 2D world. And if you see, this is a scene from a show called Black Mirror. The episode name is 15 Million Merits. It is so depressing, but I think it's very close to the world they envision. You notice they're all sitting here pedaling stationary bikes. That's to earn their energy credits. And they're watching stupid video game / shows, of which they have very limited choice on those screens there. And what they spend their energy credits on are the food out of the vending machines, which they comment is grown in a lab. And they also spend it on turning off commercials, because they'll bombard them with commercials on their screens, and they spend energy credits to not have to be subject to the commercials, because the commercials are full of sex and degeneracy, like, pornography, etc. This whole system was envisioned ages ago. Look, technocracy. Patrick Wood is one of the leading experts on technocracy right now, if you want to learn more about it. The technocrat no money society uses energy credits. And here's energy accounting according to technocracy. The term energy accounting refers to a system of resource allocation proposed by technocracy. With the sum total of all energy needed to produce the goods known, it is then possible to allocate an equal share of the production capacity to each citizen. They say they would give paper certificates, but this is a long time ago. It says in a more modern system, the certificates could be replaced by a computer accounting system where each person's allocation is referred to as energy credits. Yes, well, what would be more perfect for doing that than cryptocurrency backed by your own energy put onto the blockchain where they could perfectly track your energy output and your energy input, so to speak, on the Internet of Things. The energy accounting system looks very much like the dreamed of sustainable development accounting system, accounting for sustainable development. They are very, very careful in this document to avoid using the word energy. It's fascinating because they are obsessed with energy, right? Fossil fuels versus green energy, all of this, but they go out of their way not to use the word energy in this document. So we have to read between the lines a little bit. Biophysical accounts of natural capital, they say. Biophysical natural capital accounts measure sustainability by evaluating to what extent humanity's demands on the biosphere in terms of renewable and non-renewable resource consumption and waste production exceed nature's capacity to renew itself. They are derived from material accounts and the biological productivity literature and assess for any given activity the biological productive area required to produce the resources and to absorb the waste of that activity using prevailing technology. Such biophysical accounts, therefore, provide a measure of strong sustainability. What an impenetrable wall of bureaucratic language, which is seeking to avoid being easily understood by the common person. You have to really wade through that to understand that it is exactly the same thing as what technocracy proposes with its energy accounting. You see how they say, evaluate to what extent the demands on the biosphere exceed nature's capacity to renew itself. They say, they assess the biologically productive area required to produce and absorb the waste. So it's exactly energy credits. You just have to understand they didn't want to look like they were saying it the same way as the technocrats because everybody recognized technocracy for what it was, which was an insane control freak cult. Anyway, let's continue. I have a note here. I'm sure people look at this and they say, no way will we ever let this happen. Well, they've already thought of the way to ease you into that, and that is through virtual and augmented reality. 2019, the year virtual reality gets real. As I look to the future and the arrival of 5G, my hopes for virtual reality become even brighter. Some of virtual reality's outstanding obstacles to growth will be overcome. The low latency, super fast speeds, and stable connections that 5G brings will herald a new era of virtual reality. Experiences will be more accessible, more reliable, and ultimately more immersive. Here's an example of a virtual reality world that already exists, and many of you may have heard of. Second Life. This is a totally immersive world where you can have your own business, your own family, your own home. You can design your own clothes. You can make friends. You can earn money. People lose their whole real lives to Second Life. I recommend you Google it. Look it up on YouTube too and see testimonials from people. It's really scary. And you see, this is their landing page. This is their website, Second Life's current website. I'm going to draw you to their symbols. Look at this, the all-seeing eye. And look at the degeneracy, I'm sorry, but it is, of this image. What is this supposed to say? A youngish white rabbit cat woman with her breasts partially exposed, lying prone. Is she dead? Is she exhausted? What has just happened in this room? And it's a cartoon, notice that. Remove us from our humanity one step at a time. And again, eliminate the 3D world and replace it with a 2D world of transhuman. That's not even a girl, that is a girl cat rabbit. It's not wholesome. The virtual reality world will be constructed completely by them. And it will very closely resemble how you would move through the real 3D world, because they will have constant real-time inputs from this, the Internet of Things. Here's another article. New virtual world, Sansar is ready to pick up where Second Life left off. They talk about a real estate millionaire named Anshe Chung. What caught the attention of the world, however, is Anshe Chung wasn't a real person. She was an online avatar. And the properties she sold were computer-generated images rendered in the virtual world's Second Life. It was the first time someone had generated such staggering real-world wealth by selling digital stuff in a virtual space. Following the article's publication, Second Life's popularity exploded. The platform represented all that our future lives inside virtual worlds could be. Transhuman. Not 3D humans anymore. Avatars connected to a worldwide brain on the Internet of Things. That's the technocratic future. You know, Davos gets a lot of attention now. Well, it's a World Economic Forum baby. It's where they get all the billionaires together. And there's fewer and fewer of them. If you remember Ellen Raworth talking about the unprecedented opportunity for making this all happen, because they've centralized and concentrated wealth, knowledge, and power in few hands. Well, those few hands meet at Davos, whatever you want to call it. It's a World Economic Forum project, meeting place. It's where they all convince each other that this world is the world they should build. It's where they all rub their hands together with how much money and control they're going to get when they treat us all like virtual game pieces. Scratch virtual. We will be literal game pieces. All through this technology. If you think I am exaggerating, let me play for you. It's probably a minute long, if that. Outtakes from the World Economic Forum's own video on the Fourth Industrial Revolution. In this mini documentary they've made, they interview several proponents of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. I will link to the whole video in the description box, but what I'm going to show you is just the parts spoken by one woman. I'm going to link them all together for you here. Listen to what she's saying.
The very idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change.
Our bodies will be so high-tech we won't be able to really distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.
With the ability to visualize brain activity, for example, through a simple consumer-based EEG device, it gives us access to ourselves in ways that we've never before thought possible. It unlocks the black box that is the brain and enables us to really, truly be able to realize an identity that is aspirational. One of the things that I think is so essential to free and open societies is freedom of thought. And up until now, the conversation we've been having is around freedom of speech. Once we can access people's thoughts and access people's emotion, we have to create a space that enables people to think freely, to think divergent thoughts, to think creative thoughts.
She said to you, she told you what the World Economic Forum thinks of humans. in that first sentence when she said the very idea of human beings being some sort of natural concept is going to have to change. She said they want to unlock the black box that is the brain and then create spaces for us in which we can be creative. We have that space already. What she really means is they want to take it away from us so that they can decide which parts we're allowed to have back for a fee under their strict control. Okay. I really want to stop talking now, but I have one more thing to say to you. This issue, this sick science issue, is to me the most important thing that we're facing. It ties right into euthanasia. Euthanasia will eliminate the beings on Earth who can't produce enough energy for those energy credits. You see what I'm saying? I, Polly, will have to be a useful enough human so that the energy I put into the system will be enough for me to eat and stay clothed and fed and warm. It has to equal out. People who are sick, disabled, depressed, young, like very young and have some illness, or very old, or even just a little bit old. You see, the technocrats already know that those people will throw off their equation. Those people can't ride a stationary bike all day. Those people can't input enough energy to the system for the common good in order for it to be worth it for the system to feed them and keep them warm, etc. So, to me, the sickest things that are going on in society right now all relate back to this what I've just told you today, the fourth industrial revolution, where we are literal cogs in a wheel. And all that being said, I believe I'm finished chasing the news, because that's a distraction from what's really going on here. What's really going on here is every one of us are being conditioned. We are losing our humanity. We are losing our soul. We are losing the ability to even reach back and remember a better way. We forget how able we are. We forget that we're able to take care of our own business and each other. We're more and more turning to the government and asking them to solve our problems for us. What I want to focus on from now on is how to get that humanity back and how to see through their lies and their hypnotism and their cult. I want to focus on that sort of thing, whatever that might be. But I think I'm done digging. I've produced many videos, probably 100 or more videos. And I encourage you to go back in time and look at them. Don't always wait for the next one. Many of us have done excellent work a year, 2 years ago. Please go watch those, because we're wasting our time reinventing the same topics over and over. You owe it to yourself to find what's already out there and let the rest of us move on to the next topic, okay? That sounded a bit like I was mad at you all, and I'm not. But look, I covered foundations. I covered a lot. So please go back and watch that, okay? Because I have to move on. We need to save our souls, basically. We need to save our humanity. That's the only way that we can fight all of these problems simultaneously. It's the only way we can stop our children from being wooed into the virtual reality world. Because what happens once we're in there? Once we're in there, can we get out? We have to stop this at the soul level. Okay, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm going to stop talking now. If you liked the video, or appreciated it at least, could you leave me a thumbs up and a comment? You could subscribe if you haven't. You could check me out on BitChute and Twitter. I'm at 99freemind on both of those platforms. I also have a paypal.me address if you'd like to make a financial contribution. But I'm going to say that I prefer that you send something through the snail mail. My P.O. Box address is on my website, amazingpolly.net, on the contact page. I can take US or Canadian dollars. I don't trust PayPal anymore, guys. I really don't trust it. So I prefer if you send me something that way. And I'm going to look into other ways too of sustaining myself in this increasingly hostile electronic environment. All right, until next time, peace out.